Writers Workshop. It doesn't look like I have anybody signing in today, which is always okay, because this is your workspace and your place to get feedback. So if you don't need it this week, that's totally fine. Instead, what I like to do when we don't actually have anyone who is able to submit work in advance, or I don't in particular have anything that I feel would really benefit you in terms of looking at actual writing that I've done, I like to talk a little bit about the writing process. And today I want to talk about something that I'm feeling pretty strongly because I just got some feedback that I will say was negative feedback for a submission that I turned in, and I feel like it was unfair feedback. So I did what I normally do, which is I write back an email that is just caustic. I mean, it just really lets them know exactly what I think about them, and how unqualified they are to review me, and how they were completely crazy and they just don't know what they're doing, and all of that kind of stuff, right? So I always write an email to get those frustrating feelings out, and then I do not send it. Make sure that you don't send it, right? But allow yourself to have that initial response of like, ugh, because we all know we put so much into the documents that we submit, be they abstracts or grant proposals or actual manuscripts, right? Like, we put a lot of ourselves into them. And so you're going to have some sort of feeling about getting a reply. So I always recommend that you do that initial kind of burning off, frustration and blowing off steam. And then you take a little bit of time to take a step back and review the feedback and see, is this helpful advice? Is this substantive advice that will actually make the work better? Because I will say a big part of doctoral or even just like graduate level preparation is being able to take feedback and grow from it. And even if it's a little misguided, sometimes find any little useful nugget to move the science forward, right? Because that's why we go into these spaces to get the opinions of other experts, basically. So that did just happen. But it made me think of something that I've talked about previously in classes. And so I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about imposter syndrome. And I want to talk about this specifically because it can be really challenging to have things go poorly, especially when you've put a lot of time and energy into them. So just to give you kind of an overall sense and an intro into this phenomenon, because imposter syndrome is fairly well known at this point, but some people haven't heard of it. But there's this idea that we have a different conception of ourselves than potentially the rest of the world has of us, right? Because on the inside, we're having inner dialogues that have access to all of our prior trauma and sadness and experiences and all of the things that have potentially allowed us to question ourselves. But the outside world does not have access to that, right? They get to see us at face value based on the person that just presented whatever it was that we presented to them in the moment without all the baggage. So I like this Science of People cartoon, Who You Think You Are, right? An awkward, crazy mess of an individual who tries too hard to impress people and has no talent. You can definitely feel that way sometimes in these spaces. But who others think you are is just like a pretty cool person, right? Because they don't know all of the other stuff that's going on in your mind while you're doing this. I will mention that, I've been to a lot of different schools. I've kind of gone up through the educational ladder, and I've had to reapply many times to different places. And my most recent application to a postdoctoral fellowship asked for all of my grades, my entire life, basically starting in high school. So, I mean, can you imagine looking back at the grades that you got your sophomore year of high school? So I actually looked back, through all of these different places that I was, and I realized that my GPA was like 3.75 across all of these places. And I thought, wow, I always thought that I was like this close to failing out. Literally in my brain, all of this time, I've been thinking that I was just like a barely hanging in there student, when clearly that's not the case. The evidence exists to prove that that's not true. Similarly, when I was applying for I think it might have been the same postdoc. I was telling my husband about how uncertain I felt, and how I didn't deserve to be there, and everybody else is more qualified, and if I don't get it, then I understand. And he said, at this point, there would have to be an awful lot of people who've been wrong about you, because you've had many, many people tell you otherwise, and you've been in different programs or gotten fellowships or grants or things. Like, that would be an awful lot of people to fool. So either you're really good, you are like a master deceiver to the level that you should like be in Vegas or something with your own show. You're either that, trickster goddess, or you might actually be good at this. And I think that to be really explicit about my own challenges in this space of never really feeling like I was that good, despite any evidence to the contrary, is something that I really want to share with people, because I think that sometimes we hold ourselves back. We think about projects we'd like to do or papers we'd like to write, or just, even op-eds and commentaries of things that we really believe in and would like to share with other people, but maybe doubt either the validity of it or just like doubt the importance. And I really want us to get past that. And I myself am pushing back on getting a negative review right now, which even at this phase of my life still phases me just a little bit. So the imposter cycle, which you see right here, is basically you have a project or a piece of work you need to get on and get moving. But there's a lot of anxiety and self-doubt and worry because you have all of that talk, that talk that has the awareness of your history and your trauma and all these other things that you feel about yourself, which inform that anxiety. And so you generally will respond in this cycle in one of two ways. You will over prepare, which is definitely where my soul lives. I'm always way over prepared. Or you'll procrastinate because I can't deal with that right now. So I'm going to put it off and put it off. But eventually you accomplish it. You finish whatever it is that you're supposed to do, and you get this feeling of relief. Oh man, I'm so glad that I was able to do that. And then you get positive feedback from what you were able to accomplish. Now, among the over-preparers, what you start thinking is, I'm not, smart or talented or unique or original or creative. I'm just a hard worker. And, anybody who worked really hard would also probably get this sort of feedback, right? Or if you're somebody who procrastinated, you may be thinking, man, I got incredibly lucky. They obviously weren't reviewing that as rigorously as they should. Somehow I slipped by under the radar. I really don't deserve to be here like other people. I just got, tremendously lucky in this instance, and probably in the past too. So in both of those scenarios, you are unable to take the positive feedback. You ignore it, or you push it away. And it starts to contribute to that anxiety, self-doubt, worry that you maintain. It kind of adds to that cloud. And it contributes to you feeling like a fake. Like, I really don't deserve to be here like other smart people. I'm just a hard worker. I lucked into this. Or I really don't deserve to be here because I got lucky that one time. And now I'm having more, doubt and depression and anxiety and sadness because I'm in a situation that I am not prepared to be in. And I'm just waiting for somebody to look at me and say, hey, how'd you get in here? And tell me that I don't belong. And then you kind of just live in this space until the next project comes up. And what a terrible way to live. But I will tell you that I myself find me in that space sometimes. This is definitely something that I see with a lot of people of color who have kind of not only internalized some of the negative talk, but are occasionally held to a higher standard than is expected, or people kind of expect them not to do as well, so they feel like they really need to over prepare. And I don't just say people of color. Honestly, it's anybody who doesn't have a real solid history and background in academia. You can feel this way. And so, again, what a yucky thing to get stuck in. So when we talk about imposter syndrome, again, it really is this collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite your evident success, right? When I look back over my educational career, I have been tremendously successful, and some of that has been just talents that I was born with. A lot of it has been hard work, but all of it has been a reflection of this persistence and just keeping going despite these feelings of like, I don't belong here, or other people are more qualified to be here than me. So, when we look at other causes of imposter syndrome at work, look at these numbers. I mean, this is from a survey from this is a company that does business analytics, and they will come in and also talk to your organization about being more productive. But a lot of this, 40% of the people polled said that this was self-generated self-doubt. This wasn't even externally people telling them they didn't deserve to be there. This was stuff that was just driven by that, that cloud of negativity that you kind of maintain sometimes based on your history. 20% of people said that they felt more like an imposter when they had to ask for help, which is kind of crazy because as a social constructivist, I recognize that none of this stuff inherently exists. We invented all of this. We are just, bipedal hominids that decided to invent things like money and offices and processes. So nobody organically knows how to do this. You should always be willing to ask for help. That's the only way that we progress, right? Being criticized is some of it. Some people do feel like they are maybe more targeted than other people, or some people interpret feedback, like I do sometimes, as being criticized, when really what we're trying to do is be the best version of ourselves in our science. So you got to be able to take some criticism, right? And then some of it is being compared to others. And that's certainly a challenge in academia. That's always a challenge, right? Because some of us are going to do things that are a little bit more kind of hot topic and exciting, that's going to get the funding and the attention and all of that kind of stuff. And then some people are actually doing the hard work that won't necessarily get recognized, but it is nonetheless really critical to all of our success, right? But 70% of people experience imposter syndrome. I bet it's even higher than that. This is just based on one survey. So I bet if you asked everyone, they would kind of say at some point, most of us do. But there are ways to overcome it. So in this particular graphic, they really highlight the importance of accepting praise. It's not culturally appropriate in certain Western cultures to really take praise well. We're often taught to kind of demur or defer, like, oh, no, it's fine, no big deal, right? When really it is sometimes quite a big deal. So we got to get better at that. And really knowing our worth. So don't shy away from praise and compliments, even if it's uncomfortable. Try to work on it. And I find that a good way to work on it is to be really generous with your ability to praise and compliment other people. Just be willing to recognize when they've done something that's exceptional or a little bit stretching for them. Also, stop thinking like an imposter if possible. Learn to recognize when you're having these negative patterns and replace them with positive affirmations, or frustrated acting out like I just did in that email, right? When I'm used to winning. I know that's a weird thing to say. I actually wrote a LinkedIn article called When the Golden Goose Lays a Lead Egg. When you get used to winning in these spaces, honestly, when you start to win, you keep winning, because all of our grants and all of our recognition in the field often builds on itself. So it can be really challenging to feel like things go your way. Most of the time they do. And then all of a sudden the rug is ripped out from under you, when really that's the more realistic situation in the field, at least that we're in. And of course, don't seek perfection. Facing challenges and losses is a key part of growth. So recognize that you don't have to be good at everything. And I think in the CON, Dean Lorna is really trying to create a space where we can all kind of grow together and be very open about our conversations and have some vulnerability, and know that that's going to really lead to the environment that we all want, which is like a very kind of sharing, open, very personal environment, as opposed to one that is very competitive and restrictive and, set standards that aren't necessarily tailored to the individual. I think that's how it can be in certain places, but I don't think that's where she's going with it. And I think that shared governance really is about understanding that there are uniqueness and individualities, and we don't all have to be good at everything, but we do all benefit from being willing to collaborate and learn that there are better ways. So anyway, I hope that didn't turn out too preachy. Again, I really did just want to talk about the fact that it sucks to get something that has some negative comments, but I can turn on my scientist brain and recognize that, sure, I can make those little adjustments. They're not that big of a deal in the sense of getting a project moving that may benefit the faculty, which is what this grant was for. I can really understand that I'm here for the long game. And the long game is helping the people around me to feel supported as they're trying to grow as researchers. I really apologize for make sure that this is off. But yeah, I mean, it really is about kind of the larger mission. And figure out what techniques work for you. I write angry emails that I never send. Don't forget to not send them, and also delete them off your computer. But I let myself vent, and I let myself go for a walk and take a moment, not just for, negative responses from reviewers, but other things that happen in my life. I let myself have a day or two. I often, in my personal relationship with my husband, will give myself a day or two to really think about what it is that we're talking about. And then be willing to come back and say, I think I was wrong in that. I think my assumption there was wrong. And it's actually kind of funny because I do have those sorts of conversations with my husband where our fights consist of, I think we may have a different underlying assumption going into this discussion. And that's about as heated as they get, because when you're able to really take a step back and not take things personally, but really kind of constructively problem solve to be where you want to be, it's so freeing and really fantastic, I think. So in any case, I'm going to stop now because I haven't seen anybody sign on, and I feel like I am grateful that I had this space to at least express a little aspect of writing, which is getting feedback. But feel free to tune in anytime that you're free to join us on Friday afternoons. And don't forget that we do the research trainings on Wednesdays. Every other week we do early career researchers, and then we do mid-career researchers. And we also maintain all of the videos in the library on the CON Current Research team site. So thanks for paying attention, and I hope you have a great weekend.